This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
We'll get to the Jets game in just a moment. Obviously, a quick turnaround for all of us. But first, you want to download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. And here's the thing. You don't even have to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Also, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Well, it's also Greg Bedard time. Greg, let's start with the offensive line injuries, my friend. So Vedarian Lowe out. Caden Wallace will start at left tackle. But also you have David Andrews and Mike Owenu questionable. How banged up, how bad is this O-line right now?
I think it's typical of a short week, Nick. I think I'm not overly concerned about Andrews and Owenu. I think they'll answer the bell just fine. But look, it's an issue. I kind of do like having the short game early in the week. It's probably worse with the matchup with the Jets because right now, I mean, they do have some injury issues, but the guys you expect that could be down at some point, like a Rodgers or a Tyron Smith, like they're still doing all right. But look, the Patriots offensive line, we all know the issues. We've been over them, sort of, hampering this team at this point. And, the Caden Wallace thing, left tackle has been the biggest issue. I mean, I'm not saying Vedarian Lowe's been bad. He hasn't. He's been serviceable, I guess. But really, how much worse could it be with Caden Wallace? I don't think it'll be that big of a drop-off. You do worry about a rookie on the road, nighttime game, that type of thing. But, not great for sure, but I think they can manage it.
I guess you can look at the silver lining to all of this, if there is a silver lining. And if Wallace goes out there and holds water and doesn't completely fall apart, you might walk away from tomorrow night saying to yourself, oh, well, it wasn't that bad. And maybe they have something in Caden Wallace. Maybe possibly this guy can be decent at left tackle within the next few weeks. Defensively, O'Shane Zimenez was placed on IR today, Greg. The Patriots ended up signing, if I get his name wrong, I apologize. I looked up for pronunciation, couldn't find one, but defensive end Jamry Croma from Chicago Bears practice squad. He's 6'4", 275. He's a UDFA. He started at James Madison and finished at your lovely school of Rutgers. Any thoughts on this guy? Any thoughts on Zimenez going on IR?
Yeah, the Zimenez thing is a little bit of a disappointment because I do think he had a really good summer. I thought that he only got a couple snaps the other day, probably because he got hurt. But the few snaps that he played were pretty good the other day. Croma, I don't know much about him. Good size in all of that. The Patriots, this is we knew when they traded Matthew Judon that they were going to be a little bit short. Does it mean more of Keon White on every down on the edge? That could very well be the case. So I think that's one of the adjustments they could make.
I just think you have less experience now on the edge. You got to sign this guy who was a UDFA. You just have less experience, like 24 years old. So, it's a difficult hand they've got on the edge, and we know their 4-man pass rush just is not getting home, which is another issue. And I don't know if this guy's a pass rusher at all. So we'll have to see. We'll see if he plays, and if he's out there playing, well, what's he look like? All right, let's get into the.
One thing I want to say about that. First of all, it'd be a shock if he plays on Thursday night. I mean, they just signed him today. That means that they signed him. He's in the building, passed his physical and all that. But I would be shocked if he plays. He might be suited up, maybe. One thing I did want to mention, Nick, about the edge, of this defense, in reviewing the defensive film, I was pretty concerned about, especially as the later the game went on, their lack of pass rush discipline, specifically on the edges. I thought there were too many times where Geno Smith was just, especially to his right, which with a right-handed quarterback, you don't want to make it easy for them to roll out to their right. You want them to go the other way and have to throw across their body. And I thought there were too many instances, especially in the fourth quarter and overtime, where they just weren't setting that edge, to the right side of the pocket. And it's incumbent upon them to find guys that can do that. I mean, a lot of times they were running end tackle stunts, and they just lost their gap integrity, on all that. And so I'm sure they saw it on film. I'm sure they doubled down. And look, they're going up against a guy in Aaron Rodgers this week that isn't the Aaron Rodgers of the past. Like he does not want to run.
Yeah.
In the past, you used to have to worry about that a lot with Aaron Rodgers, and he would pick up a lot of like third downs, just on his own. He really does not want to do that anymore, coming off the injury and at his age. So maybe they can get away with it this week, but they are going to have to keep an eye on that, because it was a struggle late against the Seahawks.
Interesting point, because we've talked about DeMarcus Covington and he wants to be aggressive. And I know some thought, hey, maybe that means he kind of relaxes on the whole disciplined, stay, make sure you don't get too far upfield, make sure you're not so worried about, setting the edge. So it's going to be interesting to see if there is a quick correction on some of that you just mentioned, Greg, because, the aggressiveness, there's some good, there's some bad to that. All right, let's get to the, let's stick with the Patriots defense here. Let's start there. First of all, Juwan Bentley's out. Torn pec, conflicting reports. He might be out the whole season. He might be out most of the season. We know he's going to be out against the Jets on Thursday night. Just some of the challenges, Greg, the Patriots face without Bentley out there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first and foremost, we all know Juwan Bentley is one of the leaders on this team. He's well respected. He's been a captain multiple times on this team, and there's a reason for that. And I do think, with DeMarcus Covington and all the things he likes to do, having Juwan Bentley as sort of the brain of the defense in terms of that, of calls and, making sure guys are lined up right. Like, I do think that was an issue against Seattle, once he went out of the game. They do have Raekwon McMillan came in for Bentley against the Seahawks. It was okay. It wasn't great. Tavai has to take on a lot of probably the interior stuff that Bentley did. They like to have Tavai available to be on the edge. They probably can't do as much of that now. He's one of those guys similar to Kyle Van Noy who can sort of fill the gaps. If you're a little bit light on end, like he can be a little bit heavier in that game. But Tavai does a solid job. We just know he's limited athletically. McMillan's a better athlete, not quite as disciplined, can blitz, had some issues in that game. And, we're all sort of waiting for Sion Taki to come off PUP, and hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. I would think that would be the case. He's got to sit out the first 4 weeks, but judging what we were able to see of him when we could see practice, it looked like he was getting there, but like just not quite ready for the season opener. So I expect him to come in and probably fill a lot of what Bentley did. I think that was the idea, that he would give them depth there at sort of multiple linebacker spots. So I think, he steps in. But I think, Nick, the big ramification in all of this of not having Bentley is that now Kyle Duggar wears the green dot.
Yeah.
The communication from the coaches. This is something that's not new with Kyle Duggar. He's done it before. Mayo on Monday raved about Duggar in that regard against the Seahawks. After watching the film, I don't know if I agree with that, Nick. And, just in general, Kyle Duggar, we've talked about him ad nauseum over the years. And, he's still sort of the same player. He's 28 years old. He got the contract extension. We know that he's going to be impactful. And according to my grading, through 2 games, he's the second most impactful Patriots defender to Keon White. Keon White, I have him for like 13 impactful plays, and next best is Kyle Duggar at like 6.5. So we see the impact that Keon White has. The problem is that Kyle Duggar also leads the team in minus plays. And, including, in the opener, you had the Gesicki drop. Gesicki, if he has stronger hands, that's a touchdown. Duggar was in man coverage against them. The very next play, the tight end catches the ball. It's man coverage against Duggar. He's open by 5 yards, and luckily for the Patriots, Duggar slaps the ball out, and the guy's holding it like, a jackass. You go to the Seahawks game, Duggar's responsible for the Metcalf 56-yard touchdown, the bust on that. Duggar took the blame on film. It looked like he was to blame. And then also the Charbonnet key 3rd and 6 play in overtime. Duggar's in man coverage against him, and we've seen this repeatedly over his career. He just sort of forgets about the guy or gets locked in on the quarterback and forgets what he's doing. And then Charbonnet all of a sudden is uncovered out of the backfield, and that's Duggar's guy. So something I just wrote for the website, sort of reviewing some of those plays. But Duggar in general, like now that he's got the green dot, he has to be a lot better, or it's going to cause an issue for this team. And that's one thing I would be watching for over the coming weeks, especially with the Jets and what Rodgers likes to do at the line and sort of change things. And then also, of course, the 49ers and everything that Kyle Shanahan brings to the table. Duggar's going to get really stressed coming up in terms of, keeping those guys on point, getting the checks right, making sure he has his assignment ready. So to me, this is a big thing for this team. It's a big test to Kyle Duggar. They paid him the big money. They need him to come through now.
I was just going to say, he got his extension. He got paid. You can't have the guy who got paid during the offseason have the most minus plays for your defense. It's unacceptable. So hopefully he straightens it out. I also don't want him covering tight ends very often because that hasn't worked out too well for the Patriots. So I'd like to stay away from that as much as possible. My question to you is, given everything you just said, given the communication, short week, on the road, do you think DeMarcus Covington might lean a little bit towards the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid, instead of being so fancy pants and tricky with disguising stuff? Or should we anticipate the same kind of game plan going into this game?
Yeah, it's a good question, Nick. And I got to think, I hope that they're taking the approach of like, look, it's Aaron Rodgers. It's like going up against Tom Brady. Like, they've seen everything. They understand everything. They're going to have an answer. If you try to surprise these guys, you're going to get burned.
Yeah.
And so in this game, at least for this week, on a short week, I would keep it simple. Now, the other thing that you also have to keep in mind, the offensive coordinators in this game are basically mirror images of each other. Nathaniel Hackett for the Jets, Alex Van Pelt of the Patriots. The two of them were actually together in Buffalo. Way back when. I did a story this weekend, talking to Ryan Fitzpatrick about his experience with Alex Van Pelt in 2009 in Buffalo. It was sort of a chaotic season.
Yeah.
But these guys, they were both sort of, well, not Hackett because his dad's like one of the godfathers of the West Coast offense. So I'm sure he always had that in his bag. But when Van Pelt ran the offense in Buffalo, he was really running more of the K gun, which they used with Jim Kelly when Alex Van Pelt was, a backup there for a long time. And it wasn't until Van Pelt went to Green Bay with Mike McCarthy, where he really learned the West Coast offense. That's sort of the backbone of what he does. Nathaniel Hackett, his dad, Paul, was one of Bill Walsh's right-hand men and helped create the West Coast offense. In fact, Mike McCarthy is a disciple of Paul Hackett. So all these guys, basically, that's a long way of saying the Patriots should be seeing on Thursday night a lot of stuff that they've seen in practice and a lot of stuff that they already know. So no reason to get exotic. Just be assignment sure and just make sure that you're in the right place at the right time.
Let's talk about Rodgers. Analytically, statistically, he's been pretty mid. He's 18th in QBR. You've said before he doesn't like taking risks. He won't throw the football into tight windows. He used to be. He might still be obsessed with his passer rating. So he's not going to take, a lot of shots that are risky. And you also just mentioned he's not as mobile. He's not the same guy coming off the Achilles. He's now 40 years old. He doesn't have that mobility or that athleticism. When you look at this offense, Greg, the passing game, they lack a lot of big plays. I mean, they're 20th in yards per pass attempt, and Rodgers is getting the football out pretty quickly with this offense.
Yep.
How do you attack it if you're Covington? How do you attack him?
It's a good question. I mean, I think, when Rodgers knows that it's going to be zone, he gets it out like really quick.
Yeah.
He's looking for matchups. He's trying to be, sort of pinpoint, and he's, he's still, one of the most accurate passers in the league. I mean, not many people throw it better than Aaron Rodgers, and he has like the perfect motion, and he's pinpoint. When he knows he has man coverage, he really likes to go to the one-on-one routes down the sideline. He's an expert at the back shoulder throw. So if you're, trying to get over the top of people, he'll come back and get him back shoulder. He did have, I would say, watching the film of the Titans game, he seemed to get more comfortable as the game went on. There were a few times where he didn't pull the trigger on some throws that I was surprised about. I would look to take Garrett Wilson out of the game as much as possible.
Yep.
Because he's really the most explosive guy. Sort of, let him beat you with everybody else. They will align him all over the place. He'll run the full route tree, so it's a little bit hard to get a beat on him. He'll run a lot of slants, against zone. He will run go routes. He'll run over and unders and all that stuff. But I would do my damnedest to take Garrett Wilson out of it. I would worry less about, bringing extra people. I would cover a little bit longer. And the big thing is I do think Aaron Rodgers not being as mobile as he used to be makes things a lot easier on the defense, where you don't have to stress about Aaron taking off and running like he used to.
It is interesting because the numbers would tell you, like the offensive line, their pass protection numbers are the antithesis of the Patriots' pass protection numbers. 8th lowest sack rate. They have the 5th lowest pressure rate in the NFL. But I think it's a combination of a couple things. Rodgers getting rid of the football quickly. And also what's interesting, Greg, is the Jets have faced the least amount of blitz percentage in football in the first 2 weeks. So teams are not blitzing Rodgers, which is interesting because Rodgers, when he's been blitzed, his numbers haven't been great. So I was going to ask you, how much would you blitz him? You just said you would go with more coverage and cover longer than go after him. My second question that you haven't answered yet, you talked about Garrett Wilson. How much of Gonzalez do you put on Wilson? Do you finally make the move? If you're going to be less exotic, Greg, do you finally say, Christian, that's your guy, shut him down, or, limit him as much as you can?
It's a good question. Part of me, wants to put Jonathan Jones on Wilson. I feel like it's a little better matchup, and I think Jones is a little bit more. He's still fast as hell. But yeah, sure. I mean, why not turn him loose? I mean, as far as blitzing Aaron Rodgers and not blitzing him, I think it's because people know it's a losing battle. That Aaron's going to know where you're coming from, and he's going to throw to where you just came from, and he's going to burn you with the blitz a little bit more. Now, it's not going to be big plays. He's going to get it out quick, which he does. I wouldn't rely too much on the pass rush in this game. I mean, you're going to have to hold up in coverage just because, Aaron's just going to, if you bring an extra guy, he's going to just dump it off quickly, and he's going to get the 5 to 7 yards and keep things moving. And so that's where I think he's really dangerous. But, I just don't know, Nick, if how much DeMarcus Covington, like, really how much confidence he has. I'm not saying not in Gonzalez and not in his cover guys, because I do think, that they're really good. But, to this point, they haven't, I would say they've been more zone so far.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're building to that, or if it's a lack of confidence or a lack in the pass rush and all that stuff. But I would be surprised. I would still think that we see the same mix and probably a little bit more man on third down.
It's pretty difficult for Covington because your 4-man pass rush is getting no pass rush. If you blitz, now you might get caught like you did against Seattle a few times when they took advantage of it. But you're not getting home with your 4 pass rushers up front, which means you're asking your cornerbacks and defensive backs to do a hell of a lot of coverage. So a pretty difficult thing for this defense right now. You look at the skill position players before we get to the run game quickly. Obviously, they've got Lazard. Not too afraid of him. He'll pop a big play every once in a while, but I would not be scared of him. Mike Williams is playing less than 43% of the snaps so far through the first 2 weeks. So they're still trying to get him and his feet under him since coming off the injury. So a lot of this passing game is Garrett Wilson. Run game, Greg, you look at it, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, 2 very talented guys and dangerous talents. But what stands out to me is the Jets have not run the football that effectively. 7th fewest yards. And, of course, these are 2 weeks. So they got down against San Francisco. How much do you run in that game, et cetera?
Right.
But they're 21st in yards per carry, and their offensive line has given up the 7th highest stuff percentage in football. So do you think the Jets can run on this Patriots defense, given the Patriots defense has done pretty damn well against the run the first 2 weeks?
I do think it's going to be an interesting matchup, and I was just looking at DVOA. The Jets rush offense is 23rd in the league. Their pass offense is 20th. I don't know if a lot of their issues running the ball are schematics and sort of how Hackett goes about it, because excuse me, like you said, the running backs are extremely talented. And one thing I want people to watch during this game, Nick, like I said, these offenses are basically mirror images of each other in terms of like what they want to do and how they want to run outside zone and, play action off of that and all that stuff. I was very impressed with the Jets offensive line in terms of their athletic ability, how they get off the ball. Like just compare, watch the Patriots in their run game when they try to run wide zone and watch the Jets. Like it's not quite night and day, but they have a lot of really good athletes up front. So I don't know. And like I've said before with the Patriots thing, getting the zone blocking scheme down, it takes a lot of reps. It takes a lot of timing, and it's probably pretty dicey early on in the season, for all those guys. But Tyron Smith, I've been impressed with him so far. Of course, he hasn't been injured yet. Simpson, the left guard, Tippmann, the center. Now, Tippmann, the center, one thing that I would watch, which he struggles with, is the Patriots could hit a lot of looping stuff, stunts, that sometimes the center, Tippmann, gets, I don't know, he just loses his focus or just looks the wrong way. And I see a lot of him giving up a lot of stuff up the middle. Vera Tucker, he's a guy who's rounding into form. He had the major injury, the season-ending injury last year. Moses at right tackle isn't a great athlete, but pretty good. But that's one thing. I'm surprised they aren't able to run it better. I think they will the more weeks that go on, because I do think that they have the athletic ability you're looking for the zone blocking scheme up front. And of course, they have 2 very talented backs.
Yeah, a decent amount of change up front for them too. So maybe trying to get the feet wet there. 2 critical numbers offensively for the Jets. They're 4th in red zone offense. 75% of the time they score when they get there. So you want to keep them in between the 20s, especially this team. Down in distance, the Jets are 3rd in the NFL on 3rd down. So you gotta make sure you clean things up on 1st and 2nd. All right, before we get to the Patriots offense versus the Jets defense, our guy Greg has a little bit of a message for you.
Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike the other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. 1 Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on Prize Picks every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 free weeks of W's. Don't miss this deal on Prize Picks because it's gone when September ends. And you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 picks. Correct picks. All right, Nick. All right, here are my picks this week. I sort of swore off Demario Douglas after last week because I went back to the well thinking, all right, he can't only get like 13 yards and like one catch again. Guess what? They went under. 0 targets, 0 catches, 0 yards. But I'm going back. I think they got to hear it enough. They heard it enough this week. Pops, popping off in the locker room a little bit. So not only do I take Demario Douglas once in prize picks, I'm taking him twice. Okay, so my prize picks this week, 5 picks for 20 ducats, pays $320. I'm going with the Caleb Williams free W. Antonio Gibson, more than 32.5 rushing and receiving yards. He's got to get that, right? I mean, I got to think so.
After last week, you got to give him some touches, right?
Yeah. Austin Hooper, more than 9.5 receiving yards.
Oh,
that seems pretty easy, right? Especially if the Jets say, oh, well, we need to take Hunter Henry away. Maybe that opens something up for Austin Hooper. And now here we go. Demario Douglas, more than 24.5 receiving yards. Come on, Van Pelt. He's got to get that. Come on.
Come on.
This week.
Come on.
And then this one I'm a little bit afraid of. Demario Douglas, more than 3 receiving targets. He's got to get 3 receiving targets, right? After last week, you just need targets. He doesn't need to catch the ball. Just target him. So those are my picks this week. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game.
Bedard playing with fire. Watch out.
Yep.
You Pop Douglas. All right, let's go Pat's offense versus the Jets defense. You have to start up front for 2 reasons. We talked about Caden Wallace playing left tackle. Owenu Andrews, questionable. This offensive line for the Patriots has been brutal in pass protection. 31st when you look at what they're doing there with their pass protection. Last without blitzing. I mean, it's a bit of a mess, Greg, up front, I would say. And meanwhile, you have the Jets. And when you look at the Jets pass rush, you could argue it's the best pass rush in football. Number 1 in pressure rate, number 4 in sack rate. And here's the thing, Greg, they don't blitz. They have the 8th lowest blitz rate, which tells us that their 4-man pass rush is getting home and getting home often. You've got some guys. You've got Will McDonald, Javon Kinlaw, both above 17% pressure rate. McDonald's got 3 sacks. Quinnen Williams is a beast in the middle there for the Jets. How does this matchup stack up? How concerned are you when you're Alex Van Pelt watching film, your offensive line against that 4-man pass rush? I should add, before I get to Greg, there is one thing we got to mention. That's Jermaine Johnson, who tore his Achilles last week, so he's not going to be in this game. He is one of their better pass rushers. Reddick is still holding out, so that might help the Patriots a little bit on Thursday night.
Yeah, I would think so. I think it means, more Clemens at, right end, which will be opposite Caden Wallace. I think that's a little bit of an easier matchup. I'm really surprised at their stats. I wasn't blown away by them on film, Nick. I'm a guy who's been a big McDonald fan. I don't know why it's taken him so long sort of take hold, but I've always been impressed with them pre-draft and also some of the stuff that I saw out of him in recent preseasons. Yeah, I mean, obviously Quinnen Williams is just they're going to have a plan for him. Kinlaw, I'm not the biggest fan of his either, but Quinnen Williams, they're going to have a plan. They're going to have to double him. That means that singles up other people. But here's the thing, Nick, and this is my biggest key to the game for the Patriots offense to actually be productive in this game, because we all know, and we saw it more against Seattle, the later the game went on, the more Seattle played man-to-man, the Patriots couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
So what's really interesting, because you look at, Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, who I love, at the other corner, you look at their cornerbacks and you figure, they're just going to play press man all the time, right? Or that's what they do. Surprisingly, that's not what they do, okay? But so for the season, through 2 games, and again, it was San Francisco, So, you might handle San Francisco differently than, say, the Titans. But through 2 games, the Jets are running zone coverage 70% of the time.
Yeah.
Okay. But here's the rub. They are absurdly high zone rate on first and second down. 71%, 86%, almost 87% on second down. However, on third down, it flips. They're a 60% man team on third down. We all know the limitations with the Patriots and their wide receivers and their ability against man coverage. So to me, the key in this game for this Patriots offense, if I am Alex Van Pelt, I am telling my offense, we are going to be a CFL offense this week. We are not getting to third down. We are getting our first downs in the first 2 downs. Because if they get to third down too often, if they're just sort of slugging away and it's 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6 against the Jets and their cornerbacks and their pressure, it's going to be a very long night. So for me, I think they got to be aggressive on first down. I think they got to be aggressive on second downs and really try to limit the amount they're in third down with those splits that the Jets are showing.
Does that mean you don't think they run as much on early downs? Because I think Van Pelt's going to walk into this game and triple down on we're going to run the ball down your throat. The Jets defense has not been good against the run. There's several numbers I could give you. Just just trust me. They've been pretty bad against the run in the first 2 weeks, and they got ripped to shreds by Jordan Mason and the 49ers week 1 on the ground. And what's interesting with that, Greg, of course, is you got Kyle Shanahan, not the same exact offense, but similar thought process, right? Similar kind of approach. And they just absolutely croaked the Jets on the ground on that first Monday night. And then you look at what Alex Van Pelt did last year and Kevin Stefanski for Cleveland against the Jets. And again, they just ran it right at the Jets. So I think this is, and it's not going to be breaking news given the first couple of weeks, but I think this is a big run game. And I wouldn't be surprised if they ran the ball more against the Jets than they ran it against Cincinnati and Seattle, if that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, that could definitely be. And, what I see out of the Jets, I mean, they certainly had the players. We know C.J. Mosley, their excellent linebacker, is questionable, I think, with a toe in this game. What I see on film is that, and it's very similar to sort of the Seahawks defense. I do think I would say the Jets have more dudes up front, but, it's very much sort of like wide gaps with the defensive linemen. They all try to get up the field. They're all trying to penetrate gaps, and it leads to, some gap integrity. Now, can the Patriots exploit that? I don't know. With this offensive line, I'm not sure. Obviously, they have the backs, but look, we're going to know early. I'm sure the game plan is to go out there and pound the run. But if the Jets are a little bit more sound and they're defeating blocks and stuff like that, I just worry about getting in too many third and especially third and longs against this offense. So they're gonna have to manage that.
It's interesting because numbers wise, the Jets defense on third down hasn't been good. You wonder if that's because they go to man and they don't play as much man. So there might be some issues there, but we'll see. A couple things. You mentioned C.J. Mosley. He did not practice. He hasn't practiced all week. Robert Saleh said he's 50-50, but I've seen reporters in New York say that it's unlikely that Mosley is going to play. Quincy Williams, another guy you want to watch. He's got 9 run stops, which puts him in the top 30 in the NFL. So, he's pretty good. He's pretty active on the second level. And the other thing that's interesting to me, Greg, is, you look at this run defense for the Jets, what teams have done, they've run the 5th highest run percentage outside the tackles. So, especially, of course, San Francisco with Shanahan, the first couple weeks, they've there's been a lot of runs outside the tackles. If you're Alex Van Pelt, after what you've seen on film, do you want to start with outside zone, or do you mix it up and go, duo and downhill kind of attack in between the tackles?
Yeah, I would stick with what Stevenson wants to do, which seems to be the gap scheme, because, I do worry about the speed of the Jets defense, and I just don't think the Patriots are fast enough and athletic enough on the offensive line to really hit that wide zone stuff. So, I'm trying to go right at him. I'm trying to, double Quinnen Williams and get to the second level, that type of thing. That's the approach I would take.
All right, Greg, he has a couple of props for Pop Douglas coming up in this game. I want to ask him what he would do if he were Van Pelt to get Pop going. But first, Greg, tell the fine people about our friends at Game Time.
It's that time of year. It's getting cooler. It's football season, which means you got to be at a game to really enjoy football season, whether it's pro or college. Game Time is the place to go for tickets. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes it getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I love the all-in pricing. Toggle this feature. Shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Seat views, get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. I was just perusing Patriots Jets tickets. I see lower sideline, row 33. I could see the picture from the seat. Looks like awesome. $270 all in. If you want to come down, take the trip down with me and Giardi. We're going to be there, and it should be fun. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
If you're wondering, no, Greg and Mike have not invited me to go on this trip. Continuing the friction between myself, Greg, and Mike, I'm trying to rectify that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it done. Maybe they think I stink. Maybe got a gas problem or something. I don't know, but have not been invited just yet on one of these road trips. All right, Pop Douglas, Greg, how do you get him more involved?
A little bit of everything, Nick. What I want to see in the first quarter of this game is I want to see an end around to Pop. I want to see a bubble to Pop and a bubble screen. And I also want to see him aligned in the backfield, and getting a pick route from somebody. There's easy ways to do this. I think Alex Van Pelt has to make it a focus to do it. I want to see at least 3 touches for Pop Douglas in the first quarter. It's definitely doable. I don't know why he hasn't done it to this point. I do think there's a little bit of keeping the wear and tear down on Pop, because it's easy to say, all right, well, some of these little like zone things that Hunter Henry's been getting, you could do it to Pop. Yeah, but Hunter Henry's also 6'5" and 255 pounds. And, in Pop, he catches it at like 5'8" and like 180 pounds. And all of a sudden you have, a cornerback and a linebacker teeing off on him. It's not exactly ideal. And he's had concussion problems. So I think there's been a little bit of that, but like, look, they need more production. He's the best guy with his ball in his hand. That's what they have to do.
Before the season kicked off, I did a segment on 98.5, and I was kind of questioning some of the idea that Pop Douglas was going to have, 100 catches and go off. And not because I don't think Pop Douglas is talented. He's obviously talented. But there are a few questions that I had, which was, A, his injury history, the concussion history. How much would they use him? Or are they going to try to manage him, so to speak? B, Alex Van Pelt, West Coast offense. We want to run the football. Pop Douglas, not a big guy, not a blocking wide receiver. That would get in the way. And I was reading our friend Andrew Callahan at the Herald this week, and Andrew mentioned, there's an issue here, and that has to do with the personnel packages. And I know Evan Lazar said it. I believe you've said it as well, where like the Patriots, they're running a lot of 12 personnel because they've been successful running 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets. But I think Evan had the number that Pop played like 2 of the 20 snaps when they were in 12. And the issue is when you get that information, you say, oh, well, then why don't you go to more 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers, and get Pop on the field? The problem is when the Patriots have played 11 personnel, they haven't been very successful. So how do you handle the usage issue and the idea of, hey, we want to play 2 tight ends and run the ball, but this guy's 5'8", $170.
Yeah, and I think part of the issue with that is like, when they put the extra linemen on the field, and it was Caden Wallace. And I don't know if they're going to have that guy Zach Thomas up to do it now, but like that's probably been their best personnel package in terms of, yardage gained. And a lot of that is on the ground. And I think, Pop's not exactly a guy that you're going to rely on in the run blocking game. You'd rather have, Jalen Polk or somebody like that out there, KJ Osborne. But I do think that Alex Van Pelt just has to do a better job of mixing and matching, personnel. Like you can have 12 personnel, but you can, run it a different way and different alignments. This is the kind of stuff that we would routinely see when Josh McDaniels was the offensive coordinator here. And I just think it's been a shortcoming for Alex Van Pelt.
All right, we're going to get to our pick in a minute, but first I remind you want to download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS, get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS. And Greg just told you about Game Time, buying tickets. Check out Game Time, create an account. Code CLNS will get you $20 off your first purchase. And I'm not done promoting. I'm going to promote Greg himself and Mike Giardi. Great coverage over at BSJ. $50 for the year. All right, Jets. -6, 6-point favorites, Greg. The over-under number is 38. Update, Greg is 1-1 against the spread this year. I am 2-0 on the season.
Wait, I'm not 1-0-1? I thought it was...
Did you push?
I think we pushed. I don't know. I'll have to go back and listen.
All right. Well, Greg's either 1-1 or 1-0-1. He's going to fight for 1-0-1. And
yep.
I'm 2-0 on the year. But I went first last week, so Greg, you go first this week. Jets -6, 38 over/under.
So I think that is way too big of a number for Thursday night, and we're talking about two, pretty unimpressive offenses. While I do like the Jets in this game, and I think that they're going to win the game, I just think these two teams are way too similar. I see it a lot like the Seahawks game, and at the end of the day, I thought Geno Smith was the better quarterback, and he has the three best wide receivers, and everything else is sort of even. Same sort of thing here, with Rodgers. Garrett Wilson's the best wide receiver on the field, even though there's not a whole lot of high level targets for either team. I think the defenses sort of cancel each other out. So I'm going to take the Jets more like a field goal game. Something along the lines of, let's see, you said it's like 38. So probably like 2017 Jets.
All right. So this is why I hate going second, because Greg and I tend to think a lot alike. Although last week we disagreed. I think this is going to be an ugly game. Short week. You got a bunch of injuries for both teams. You got two cornerbacks dinged up for the Jets. Mosley's out. Johnson's out. Mosley likely out. Johnson's definitely out. Patriots offensive line and Bentley. It's just a lot of adjusting on a short week. Always difficult to do. I agree with you, Greg. Neither offense is lighting it up. Neither offense is sexy. I think the Patriots are going to try to run the football as much as they can. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets try to run it a little bit more than they have. Rodgers and Brissett, two quarterbacks that never throw picks. Lowest interception rate in NFL history. They're the two guys at the very top of the list as far as lowest interception rate. So I don't think you'll see the quarterbacks throw the football to the other team very often. I think the Jets win. I just don't have enough confidence in the Patriots offensive line, especially with these injuries now. Their home field, Rodgers, Brissett. Obviously, you tip the scale towards Rodgers. But I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. And I do not think the Jets cover the 6. I think 6 is too much. I got Jets 16-13. And the Pats can absolutely win this game. But it's going to be a little bit of a fist fight yet again. Deja vu. You've seen a lot of this through the first 3 weeks. You're going to see it again on Thursday night. So we'll see how that goes. I got 16-13. Greg said 20-17. So we both got the Jets by 3 points. And we're both saying they're going to be under that 38. Everybody enjoy the game, hopefully, as much as you can. Greg and I are going to go eat now, not together, separately. Mm-hmm. And then he's going to jump in his rental car tomorrow and drive down with Mike Giardi. I don't know what music they're playing. I don't know if they sing to each other in the car. but they'll go down to Jersey. They'll hang out. They'll have all the best coverage. Everybody be well, be good, and enjoy the football.